Please remove your caps and stand as you're able for the national anthem. Miss Megan Wagner will lead us in singing the Star-Spangled Banner. Please be seated. Well, welcome everyone to the 2018 graduate commencement for the College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource Sciences here at the University of Minnesota. I'm Brian Boer, and I'm Dean of the College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource Sciences. And the last time I'll say that for today. We'll call it CFANS from here on out. But I do thank you all for joining us today, and I'm delighted you could join us at the St. Paul campus. As I like to think of it, and as I remind President Kaler when he's here, it is the flagship campus of the University of Minnesota. He didn't wince at that, did he, at all? He didn't even we're also delighted you could be here in the North Star Ballroom. And nothing ever says commencement like having a disco ball overlooking the ceremonies. It adds a bit of a celebration to the event. So I'm honored to host today's event, and I do want to introduce some of our distinguished University of Minnesota guests that are joining us today. And if you could please stand as I recognize you. And first, University of Minnesota Regent Dean Johnson. Welcome, Regent Johnson. President Eric Kaler. Welcome, President Kaler. Vice Provost and Dean Scott Lanyon. Thank you, joining Scott. And Dean for Research and Graduate Programs and CFANS, Gregory Como. Thank you, Greg. We host commencement here because this is where your students have spent their years studying and working in these laboratories, fields, greenhouses, barns, pilot plants, computer labs, and classrooms. And I hope at some point you'll have the opportunity to join your students in their experience and visit the campus a little bit. It's a beautiful campus, not quite as perhaps budding as we'd like it to be this time of year, but at least we're not in 15 inches of snow. Graduates, for you, the St. Paul campus will forever be an integral part of your lives, and will always welcome you back to this beautiful place of discovery. You've toiled here, you've made friends here, you've made colleagues here, you've spent anxious and frustrating days working on difficult projects, completed qualifying exams, and I know some of you for a fact even slept here at times. All of this is mixed with the thrill of discovery and the triumph of now completing what will be for you a seminal piece of work in your life, if not in your profession and in your own discipline. This is why I think it's important for friends, family, and faculty and graduates to be here on the St. Paul campus under the disco ball, and I personally thank you all for honoring each other's shared commitment to our graduates' lifetime success. I personally, in my role, love the work that we do here. We weave together an ecosystem of diverse disciplines that inspire minds, nourish people, and nurture our environment. What could be more important as we go into the future than training young graduate students to take that lead in solving some of those grand challenges? Our ecosystem of discovery includes departments that have engineers, chemists, biologists, economists, nutritionists, physicists, computational scientists, geologists, climate scientists, environmental scientists in the office next door to each other or perhaps just down the hallway, because you need that diversity of disciplines to be able to address our challenge of environment, natural resources, and feeding a growing population. I can't possibly, in the time I have, give you a sense of the diversity of our programs and work that we do here and the beautiful complexity that impactful science can do. So what I did is I took some time yesterday and scanned through all of our theses that were done by our students this year. And I picked a few, and I decided that I would give them awards, sort of impromptu awards for the work that was done. You'll have to listen carefully because I can't pronounce some of the words. You'll get the idea. But to give you some sense of the breadth and the impact that some of this has on society. So I'll begin with the control, so this is the title, Control of the Common Carp through Species-Specific Toxin Delivery Systems and Biocontrol by Bluegill Sunfish. So that's an FWCB, Fish, Wildlife, and Conservation Biology thesis. I'm curious, is the student who wrote that thesis here today? I couldn't get a handle on whether people were coming or not. It was an MS thesis, and the impact of that is, of course, many are probably familiar with the invasive carp in the state, and the idea behind this is to take bluegills and deliver a toxin that's specific only to those carp, of course, ruining carp. So I decided the award for this should be the Dr. Seuss Award. The quote would be, bluegill fish, carp fish, 2 fish, 1 fish, live fish, dead fish. The second title, Strategies to Cultivate Microalgae on Eutrophic Wastewater for Nutrient Recycling and Biomass Production. This was in our Department of Bioproducts and Biosystem Science, Engineering, and Management, and a PhD thesis. And the impact of this, of course, we're concerned about water quality, and particularly in agricultural settings, we have nutrients going into those waters. And so this is cleaning up the water, creating a recycled product of phosphor that go back on the land for fertilizer, and making money at the same time. So I called this one, the award for this, is a student here by chance? Let's see, Roger Ruin I know is the advisor. The student on this here? Okay, well, they'll have to get their award another time, but the award is the Alchemy Award for turning manure into money. The next one is determining the efficacy of a dairy origin probiotic, Proionibacterium freudenreichi subspecies against multi-drug resistant Salmonella Heidelberg in turkeys. Kind of has a little German flair to it in there. That's an animal sciences PhD student. Is that student here by chance? Okay, I'm batting zero right now. Well, the impact of this, of course, you listen to these multi-drug resistant strains, this idea that in Salmonella there are resistant strains to our antibiotics. So can we use probiotics to improve the gut health of turkeys so they have better survivability and health. So the award for this I call the Jamie Lee Curtis Award for proving that Activia yogurt works in turkeys as well. This was a dairy-based probiotic, so we're assuming they're feeding Activia to turkeys. The next one is dietary and cellular mechanisms regulating hepatocyte proliferation and cancer. And this is a nutrition science PhD. And the idea behind this is many of our plants, and we're doing some research in horticulture related to plants that have anti-carcinogenic properties. I suppose cancer preventative properties would be a better way to say that. And so those foods have an impact on preventing cancer. So I gave this one, and this is for all the mothers here. This is the Mothers That Are Always Right Award. You should eat your vegetables. Well, the second to last one here, assessing calf survival and quantitative impact of reproductive success on declining moose population in northeast Minnesota. That's a Natural Resources and Sciences project. If you've been reading the papers, moose are under stress from climate change and various insects perhaps are causing their decline. So this is attempting to study how they can help calves survive, do that ecosystem change. And the award for this one I called the Dudley Do-Right Award. This is for people who are old enough to remember Dudley Do-Right, for helping save Bullwinkle the moose. So hopefully you remember Bullwinkle. So the final one that I thought was the most appropriate for the spirit of the occasion and shows the creativity and fun that you can have in research was a descriptive analysis of Frontenac Gris and Burana wine, grape, and wine varieties. I think we all know what the value of that is, growing cold-hardy grapes for wine production, figuring out how to make those tasteful. And that was done in nutrition with horticulture's help. And I give this one for our students. This is an important one. This is my work-life balance award. Something I encourage you all to do as you pursue the future career, and think about taking several trials and replications to make sure the science is right. So with that, I ask you all to please join me in recognizing all of our PhDs and master's students and their tremendous accomplishments and impacts they're going to have. So thank you. Congratulations, students. So graduates, I'll talk a little bit more to you, and today is all about you, but I hope you do recognize that you did not accomplish all of this by yourselves. You've had the patience and loving support of your parents, family, spouses, and friends who've joined you here today. And they've unwaveringly, you think about the time you've been in school, they've unwaveringly supported you from the time you graduated from high school, through your baccalaureate degree programs, on to your master's degrees or to the completion of your master's degrees now, and finally and exhaustively until some of you have completed your doctoral degrees. Persistence does pay, but I'm not sure how long they're going to put up with all this, so I think you should give them a hand now and thank them for their support of your work. And one other group I'd like to thank. I'm sure you did this, but I just want to make sure I cover the bases. There are others here that I know have sometimes been your harshest critics. At other times, they've been your most ardent and strong supporter. You've stayed up all night cramming for their impossibly difficult and nerve-wracking qualifying exams. You've strived to make endless revisions that would turn your work into an award-winning thesis. The bond you've formed with your faculty advisor committee members and mentors will shape the rest of your lives. I always feel like I offer an apology for that, but as it is, they will remain with you as supporters throughout your lives. You may not believe it now, but I do know that the faculty take great pride in your accomplishments and will revel in the successes you have today and also all the accomplishments you'll have in the future and those impacts you will have on our grand challenges. I'd like to thank the advisors and faculty that are here today as they share in your achievement and excitement as well. So faculty, I'd ask you all, some are seated over here, to please rise and be recognized for your role mentoring the graduates and helping to ensure their success. Thank you. Graduates, you're now leaving the University of Minnesota with knowledge you've acquired and an excellent set of skills and knowledge. Use what you've learned wisely and share your gifts generously. Please stay in touch with us in the future and share with us the news of your career. I'm sure many of you will be back here for conferences, symposiums, and connect with your advisors. And we wish you certainly the best of success as you continue your life's journey of learning and discovery. With that, it's my pleasure to welcome the 16th President of the University of Minnesota, Eric Kaler. Since taking office in 2011, President Kaler has focused on core priorities: academic excellence, affordability, diversity, and a welcoming and respectful campus climate, a world-class research enterprise that aligns with the needs of citizens and industries of Minnesota. Before becoming the 16th president of the university, Dr. Kaler served as provost and senior vice president for academic affairs at Stony Brook University in Stony Brook, New York, and prior to that, as dean of the University of Delaware's College of Engineering. He received his undergraduate degree from the California Institute of Technology in 1978, and then President Kaler came to what we like to think of, he considers his academic home, unfortunately not St. Paul as his academic home, but close enough, the University of Minnesota as a doctorate student. In 1982, he earned his PhD in chemical engineering and went on to become one of the nation's foremost experts on complex fluids, which have applications in drug delivery, food processing, pharmaceuticals, and manufacturing. Please join me in welcoming President Eric Kaler.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for your leadership of CFANS. And there is a short version of that introduction, which I wish we had used today. But Welcome, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here with Dean Johnson, Regent Dean Johnson, and with family and friends of our graduates. On behalf of the entire university community, welcome and congratulations. Your loved ones made it, and to our graduates, we're very proud of you. Now, I was in New York recently for some donor-related work, and I bumped into a fellow who was quite interested in the university's commitment to agriculture, to research, and to natural resources. The guy was a banker, and he told me about a Minnesota farmer named Ole Svensson from Candiaio County who came into his Manhattan bank recently and wanted to borrow $5,000. Ole told the loan officer that he had a PhD in applied economics from the University of Minnesota, but he'd never been to New York before. And he and his wife, Lena, planned to spend 2 weeks there seeing all the sights. The banker did a little background check on Ole, Googled him, and found out that he had plenty of assets, but the bank would need some collateral. Ole said, "Fine, here are the keys to my car." Brand new Mercedes parked out front. The banker said, "Great, thank you." 2 weeks later, Ole comes back, pulls out a stack of $100 bills, and pays back the $5,000. The banker said, "Well, then there's the interest." And Ole says, "What's the interest?" He says, $23.07. Ole gives him $23.07. The banker says, "Ole, I did some research, and you have no need of borrowing $5,000. Why did you do that?" And he said, "Where else in Manhattan can I park my car for 2 weeks for $23? That's what you learn at the University of Minnesota. Yes, like all of you in the class of 2018, Ole had done his research, and he tackled a grand challenge, which for his case was parking in Manhattan. But your research went far beyond that and was surely no laughing matter. Seriously, I've seen your areas of research, and as the dean demonstrated, some of the words are hard to understand or say. But your work ranges from gene mapping to consumer behavior, from biomass conversion to paper science, and from obesity to hydrology, and many things in between. Your work clearly demonstrates that our College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource Sciences is a global center for inquiry and for discovery. And let me be clear, your research is not only a private good, like Ole's parking scheme, but it's a public good that can and will change lives and communities. And the fact is that the university has come a long way in its attitude towards the academic power of agriculture and natural resource sciences. In the beginning, we needed the Moral Act of 1862 to create land-grant universities like ours, and to have those include the study of agriculture in their curriculum. Despite that historic piece of legislation, enacted under President Abraham Lincoln, early members of our Board of Regents, I'm sorry to say, Regent Johnson, were highly skeptical that somehow the study of land, of food, of nutrition, of the environment, of the forests were actually legitimate academic endeavors. But in the 1880s, with the purchase of the land we have gathered today, and in the 1890s with the advent of a true academic and data-centered approach to agriculture, we established ourselves as the great natural resource, food, and environmental institution that we are today. And I assure you that our commitment as a university to the land, to food, and to our natural resources is enduring and a fundamental core of this university's mission, and our students are the stewards of that mission. You, our new masters and PhDs, stand on the shoulders of teachers, producers, and scholars who came before you. Now you are the next generation of innovators, thought leaders, scientists, policymakers, and world changers. You will help continue to grow the prosperity of this region that I call the Silicon Valley of food. You will continue to discover, and you will have a deep impact in farms, towns, governments, schools, universities, and nonprofits across the state, and indeed across the nation and around the world. Your scholarship represents the power of CFANS and the best of our university. Congratulations on the hard work and the good work you've done. And remember, when in doubt, try not to pay too much for parking. Thank you.
Thank you, President Kaler. You learned a lot in your PhD. Those Ole and Lena jokes were critical, I'm sure. With that, it's my pleasure to welcome Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Education, Scott Lanyon, who earned his PhD at Louisiana State University in 1985, and his research is in the area of avian systematics. Dr. Lanyon served as a curator of birds at Chicago's Field Museum of Natural History for 10 years before becoming a faculty member at the University of Minnesota's Department of Ecology, Evolution, and Behavior. He served 8 years as head of the Department of Ecology, Evolution, and Behavior, and 13 years as the director of the Bell Museum of Natural History. Shameless commercial plug, the new Bell Museum is opening July 14th on St. Paul campus here, and we'll look forward to you coming and learning more about natural resources and food and agriculture. We're delighted to have that coming here, and Scott led it with for many years to bring it to that auspicious outcome. In appreciation of his contribution to ornithology as both a scholar and leader, Dr. Lanyon was elected president of the American Ornithologists Union. Dr. Lanyon was appointed Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Education in 2016, with his top priorities to be graduate education at the university to prepare students for a wide range of career paths, not only in academia, but also for positions in industry, government, nonprofits, and K-12 education. Other priorities include increasing diversity in graduate education, building communities that welcome students from underrepresented groups, providing training on how to work effectively as members of a diverse team, and helping students communicate effectively with diverse audiences. Please join me in welcoming Vice Provost and Dean Scott Lanyon.
Thank you, Dean Burr. Thank you, President Kaler, Regent Johnson, distinguished faculty, staff, families, friends, and of course the graduating class of 2018. It's my great pleasure to be here to share some brief remarks from the graduate school. Today I invite you to consider your opportunities, your obligations in addressing one of the grand challenges of both the generations before us and arguably of those that follow us, and that is the understanding, appreciating, and embracing the differences among us as human beings. So let me tell you a personal story. You just heard that for 13 years I served as director of the Bell Museum here at the University of Minnesota. About a year or two into my tenure in that role, we were discussing with one of my colleagues, one of the educators in the museum, how we might develop programs that would help connect inner city kids with nature. And of course, I had all these great ideas. I thought they were brilliant. I thought they were very creative. But as gently as he could, since I was his boss, my colleague informed me that I didn't have a clue what I was talking about. And the issue is that I grew up on a research station. Both of my parents had graduate degrees, had a house filled with books, scientific journals. Well, maybe all the rest of you had the same experience as I did. My pets were, I had a falcon, a raccoon, a deer, a squirrel, and assorted songbirds. And I spent nearly all of my time outside in nature. And so while that background was really helpful in preparing me for a graduate education and for a career in academia, it kind of made me clueless about how to communicate with the rest of the world. So my colleague taught me that to serve the community was to understand the community. We started talking with community leaders and families, many of whom had very different backgrounds and experiences than I did, obviously. We learned about better ways to engage and educate kids, and as a result, our programs met the needs of kids and were done with the community rather than to the community. Diversity jolts us into cognitive action in ways that homogeneity does not, will not, and cannot. Diversity makes us smarter. It produces better results. It will help us achieve things we could never do alone. A study published in Scientific American found that when disagreement comes from a socially different person, we're prompted to work harder. So it's being able to tolerate, accept, and learn from those who are different that will propel you forward as individuals, as leaders, and will move us forward as a planet. It's accepting that working with people unlike you is not only the civil thing to do, it's also the only way that we will arrive at effective solutions to today's problems. We ignore this fact at our individual and our collective peril. As experts in your disciplines, you're poised to make great contributions. But while your disciplinary expertise is necessary, it's not sufficient condition for success. You need to bring forward not just your own knowledge and skills, but also an ability and a desire to connect with and listen to people who are different from you, with viewpoints and experiences that contrast with your own. The easiest path is to work and socialize with people who look, think, and act like you. But it's also the path that is least likely to lead to major advancements for society. The alternative is to seek out individuals with whom the only thing you share in common is a question that requires an answer or a challenge that requires a solution. This path is far more difficult, but also much more rewarding for you and more beneficial for society. Decades of research have shown that socially diverse groups are more innovative than homogeneous groups. For example, a male and female plant pathologist might have perspectives and insights on a problem that diverge even more than those between a plant pathologist, say, and an entomologist if they're both male. In some situations, a group of ordinary people who are diverse can out-innovate a group of like-minded experts. So each of you alone is smart, but your collective knowledge, expertise, backgrounds, and experiences have the potential to be brilliant. To be brilliant, we need to work together, and to work together, we need to be able to get along with each other, to understand each other in authentic ways, to respect each other, to value our differences. So as you stand here at a major crossroads in your life, I'm encouraging you to take the more demanding, but ultimately more rewarding path, to work with individuals from diverse disciplines, cultures, backgrounds, ethnicities, nationalities, abilities, views, opinions, and experiences. It's on that path that you will accomplish great things. I now yield the podium so that you may more quickly get on to celebrating and doing great things. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Provost Lanyon, and thank you for joining us today. Now it's my pleasure to get a student in front of you, which we all are the best speakers that we have here. They're the most engaging and certainly the youngest that we have here. It was now my pleasure to introduce Nick Ames. Nick Ames began his scientific journey in Houston. He received a bachelor's degree in genetics and biotechnology from Brigham Young University in 2012, working with professors Rick Jelen, Joshua Udall, Clint Whipple in a variety of both common and orphan crops. He initially specialized in medical genetics, but then changed over to plant genetics and agricultural management after filling out his 300th page of paperwork. No risk of my job being in danger then, because we fill out many pages of paperwork all the time. Nick, he worked under Professor Gary Muehlbauer on pathology and genetic mapping in wild barley, receiving a master's degree in 2014. He then moved to Professor Rex Bernardo's lab, working on predicting the performance of plants in specific environments, and completed his doctorate in 2018. While at the University of Minnesota, he also served on multiple organizing committees for the Pioneer Plant Symposium. He also served in several roles on the CFANS Council of Graduate Students, including representative for the Applied Plant Sciences Graduate Program, as a justice, and as the Student Senate Consultative Committee member representing University of Minnesota graduate students at large. With that, please join me in welcoming our student speaker, Nick Ames.
I'm going to take this hat off. It's distracting. No, it's fine. Oh, good. Congratulations, CFANS class of 2018. Now, some of you may be surprised there's a difference between, at this time I thought there was a picture of me in the handbooks, a fresh-faced child in your pamphlets, and the grizzled old hobo that stands before you. Graduate school is a very long time, even if only measured in a few years. For many of us, this is the last stop of academics. This is the end of a long road of education and training that has culminated in a final degree. This degree has come at a great sacrifice of time, money, and in some cases, actually getting a job. After this point, we are ultimately responsible for our own development. Others will still have a degree or two to cap off the end of this trek, but many of us are done. Regardless, this is a time and point of reflection for examining where we've been and calculating where we're going. In the spirit of this, I would like to talk about a theme that touches upon especially our college and academics and science. The two topics I would like to talk about are balance and conservation. These two subjects are particularly close to the overall goal of the CFANS community, and that we are part of a community of people who are stewards of natural resources in one way or another. For some of this means absolute preservation and holding those resources sacrosanct. For others, this is a member of a larger effort putting those resources to work for the advancement of human progress. Together, it is not just about being a steward, but about being a responsible steward. A responsible steward both puts resources under their command to work, but also preserves and respects their long-term viability. This balance should not just be about the way we approach the natural world and our scientific discipline, but how we approach life as scientists and experts, conservationists, agriculturalists, and those who depend on the natural world for our trade. Often we must weigh others' disparate interests, those who may have different worldviews than we might. As we step out of the shadows of our advisors, and many of those are long shadows, we find a very different world than that of 5 or 10 years ago when advisors were in our place. Or perhaps 15 or 20 or 30, 25 years. For some of advisors, it might have been quite some time. Scientists in our college are increasingly called upon as experts to solve a growing list of problems that are compounding upon each other. Many of these problems are decades, centuries, or even fundamental to the human experience. Some of these problems are so interwoven into the fabric of society that they ask of us to draw on skills that we may not have developed within our program. We've asked to be versed in sociology, politics, history, public speaking, rhetoric, and simply having the confidence and charisma to engage the public in areas that we may not necessarily be comfortable in. We must learn to balance all parties in these problems and take the hard path of mediation, as by the nature of our degrees and expertise, we will likely be the judge, arbiter, and expert in situations involving these natural resources. We cannot hide away in some cool hole and hope that the troubles pass and the heat of the situation dissipates on our own. Someone else solves the issue. Look around this room. Comparatively, there are very few of us. And we are one of the largest refineries for taking undergraduates and turning them into qualified graduate scientists. Even with that, there are so few. There is no one coming to the rescue. There are no reinforcements. There is increasingly little time to act. There is no one else, and if you don't do it, there are a few others who can. I received my undergraduate degree from Brigham Young University in what is essentially a degree in applied evolution. I was a rabble-rouser, and if you ask those leaders who I served with, and even some of them who are on the stage, this chronic level of crotchetiness has only increased with age. My time here at the University of Minnesota has often led to mediation between these groups and individuals that often loathed each other, not some of the ones on the stage, but the other ones. In some ways, I've been trained for balance since birth. Both my parents are lawyers, one working in negotiation contracts and the other working in taxes, both very attentive to detail. While it may be easy to surround ourselves with comforting slogans like feeding the world and saving our planet, the devil is in the details, details which we have spent the last decade learning. But knowledge and a conviction of our own intelligence and wisdom is not enough to call support. We must be temperate and even-handed. We understand that the pressures exerted on the natural worlds must be sustainable not only from an ecological standpoint, but from an economic standpoint. We will be unable to convince people of the need for preservation if we only ask for sacrifices for rewards that other people do not value. We must educate and be educated. Our growth does not stop here, but stepping forward, we will now be responsible for our own self-directed path. Let us make sure that it is a path that is responsible to what we've earned. A good friend once told me that we should not wait for good things and opportunities, but make it good right away, because one day it will be laid in the dirt. Congratulations, class of 2018.
Thank you, Nick, for those remarks. You didn't seem all that crotchety to me. We were talking. With that, it's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Jeffrey Stamp. Jeff Stamp earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Food Science and Technology in 1983 and his doctorate in Food Science in 1990 right here in CFANS. I bet that disco ball was here then for sure, right? Upon that strong foundation, he spent more than 25 years of worldwide experience in bringing out the creative best in business professionals and university students. Dr. Stamp is chief storyteller at Bold Thinking, leading a team that provides ideation, concept development, venture strategy, online and live training content, and events to corporations and universities worldwide that desire to discover new opportunities or foster entrepreneurial thinking in their teams. You will recognize Jeff Stamp by products he has created while in corporate life. He was the inventor, creator, and section manager of Baked Lays for PepsiCo's snack division Frito-Lay, which achieved $230 million in first-year sales and was named by Ernst & Young as the top brand introduction in the 1990s for the food sector. Jeff is recognized worldwide as a master creative practitioner and has developed numerous methods that are designed to accelerate discovery thinking and cognitive fluidity. He also resided as the endowed chair of entrepreneurship and innovation at the University of North Dakota, which was ranked 13th in the 2008 review of the top 25 undergraduate programs in entrepreneurship by Entrepreneur magazine and the Princeton Review of the 900 universities and college programs in the U.S. In 2008, Dr. Stamp was awarded the prestigious Excellence in Entrepreneurship Education Award from the Acton Foundation. Jeff's research is focused on the creative and cognitive processes that entrepreneurs use in idea creation, technology innovation, and opportunity recognition. Please welcome to the podium this year's keynote speaker, Jeff Stamp.
Thank you, Dean Boer, President Kaler, Regent Johnson, Vice Provost Lanyon, and Dean Como, faculty of CFANS, and of course, staff, parents, and of course, congratulations to the CFANS graduate class of 2018. I guess we could say it's on now, right? What a fun day of celebration, and you've sort of been at this party before. You didn't abandon the halls of learning once you received your undergraduate degree. Nope, you decided you needed more. And I hope you got all that you bargained for as well during your challenging times here at the U. Remember all those late nights, all those data sets that didn't work, all those classes you had to fill in? As a matter of fact, when we were standing in line, there was a student that came to a professor and actually had to get a form signed before the graduation ceremony today. Well, now you're on to new adventures. Well done, fellow scholars. And yes, I can say that because in a few minutes you will receive a very important piece of paper. You'll be part of a connected family of scholars that reverberates throughout history at the U of M, and I'm humbled to be able to share this brief moment in your lives collectively. So in the future, be on the lookout for the maroon and gold M. It never truly leaves you. I've had the pleasure of speaking now in 38 countries, and I have always been able to find U of M grads whenever I speak on creativity and innovation. They always come up to me and say, "Skayuma." That has always delighted me and given me a sense of connection as we recall stories from our late nights of research in the pursuit of science while at the U, and especially for those of us who like to, as we like to call, Dean Boer, the main campus, correct? Well, graduates, can you imagine a world that will be like in the next 30 years? I can't either. And guess what? I've already done that one already. Because 2018 is the 30th anniversary of my PhD commencement, and I hate to actually admit that in fall of 1978, I started at the University of Minnesota 40 years ago. You know, it doesn't feel like all that time has passed at all, because as I look around in this room, well, like you said, it still looks exactly the same. Now, predictions of the future can be a dicey business. 40 years ago at my high school graduation, prior to coming to the U, the commencement speaker, a buttoned-up Methodist pastor, played a brand new song to motivate us to our future endeavors as we headed off to whatever was next. His message shocked us as he played the just-released song from Queen, "We Are the Champions." Now, that song wasn't particularly popular at the time. We nevertheless thought it was cool because he actually played a record at a graduation ceremony. Yes, I said a record. It was a 45, and on the B-side was the song, "We Will Rock You." Now, that song that everyone recognizes today never reached #1 on the Billboard Top 40. As a matter of fact, "We Are the Champions" only got to #4. But it was a catchy tune, and we all sang along because it was a rockin' ceremony. Because we have a disco ball, I was actually going to bring the record and play it again. But then in 2011, a piece of research caught my eye. A group of data scientists in London concluded that the catchiest tune in rock and roll history was We are the champions. Now, I'd love to see the data on what defines a catchy tune, but it shows what did we know at the time, 1978. So I'd like to plant a few seeds today with you that hopefully will be meaningful to you about the power of connection between us and reveal to you why I think receiving a CFANS graduate degree today is happening at exactly the perfect time in history. Why? Well, you know our tagline here at the U, Driven to Discover. Well, I think we are living at an age of redefinition. It's more than just predictions of an uncertain future, but it seems that society follows natural cycles of redefinition. In the 80s, when I was a graduate student, it was all the rage was talk about materials, material science, and the structure-functional relationships between physical, chemical, biological, and even business systems. Structure-function was really the call of our time. We made bold predictions in graduate school, and I can remember sitting around our lab when my doctoral advisor, Dr. Ted Labuza, brought in what he called the first laptop computer. It was an Osborne computer. It weighed about 46 pounds and should never have ever been on anyone's lap. But we actually sat around and said, well, what should this be? And of course, because we were all structure-function related, we said, hey, we picked up a spiral-bound notebook, we opened it up, and we said, what if this could sit on your lap and we could type on it? And we pretended to type on a spiral-bound notebook. Okay, dial ahead 25 years, and we now actually have that. I think we probably should have maybe jumped on the tech bandwagon a little earlier. But we knew computers would eventually get smaller, but we didn't know how fast or how small. And that all came true in the 2000s because that particular age of redefinition was all around technology and electronics. And now dial ahead as we get to 2020, it's all about information, diagnostics, math, of course, everything from genetic systems to meteorological systems and biological systems. But data and information seems to control our world. Now, I despise, as I sit and work with business and thought leaders, over the phrase when it comes to the topic of change, well, you know how it is, Stamp. It is what it is. Well, you know, the world isn't as it is, it's as we perceive it. And each generation gets the opportunity to redefine the world as they perceive it. And congratulations, it's now your turn to redefine the world that you see. And there are clear marks in time when there's a natural cycle of mass redefinition, extinction of the old paradigms and the recreating of new ones. And in my observation, we're at the next global paradigm shift. I mean, imagine, we never thought we'd ever see an electric-powered semi with a full trailer load go from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Yet I've seen the Tesla electric semi, and it goes 0 to 60 in 5 seconds fully loaded. Although autonomous semis electric going 0 to 60, I don't think I want to see just yet. But of course, that's all coming. Now, depending on who you follow, it's reported that 65 to 85% of all the jobs that will exist in 2013 haven't been invented yet. And you never know where the crooked path of life will take you. So be open to applying your skills in alternative directions. And there are many new areas of science that are emerging. I love some of the new ones that I read about all the time. Quantum biology, exometeorology, nutrigenomics, computational social science, cliodynamics, cognitive economics. I guess we have to think about the money we spend now. Organic electronics and quantitative biology. Active new fields today that didn't exist when I was sitting in your seat just a few years ago. Okay, 30, I admit, that's a few to me. Perhaps we're already testing and working in these new areas, and perhaps you've already dabbled in that, but there will be more. But why is all this growth in science happening today, and why is this pace picking up? With technology and all the social media connectedness that we see today, it is fostering a world that is now asking how science and humanity interact. And I'm betting you will be asked to apply your work at some point toward a problem that includes the question of human impact on the environment and the world we inhabit together. And who knows, perhaps you will find yourself expanding into a new field after you graduate. And that happened to me. I often get asked the question, how did my career path go from a PhD in food science to, as what Dean Boer referred to as, a storyteller? Well, I'm not a traditional storyteller in a literary sense. I'm a numeric storyteller. And I get to tell stories in my favorite four-letter F word, facts. And I work at the intersection of a new field of predictive analytics and cognitive informatics, how information affects how people make decisions. Now, my story of my research career, my curiosity and my interests always changed as a function of time. And it turns out, ironically, that's what I really like. I like to study anything that changes as a function of time. And I studied for my doctoral work the the loss of sweetness in a newly commercialized alternative sweetener, which you know today as NutraSweet. But I didn't realize at the time that the math we were using in that research would become the foreground of what we now call AI, artificial intelligence. But you know, it seems like change is always predictable, but I was always amazed when it came to the human interaction. I got to speak at a technical conference, the Institute of Food Technologists, and a CNN reporter came up to me and said, "So, is NutraSweet safe?" And I wanted to talk about chemical kinetics. Imagine we weren't on the same page. But I was beginning to awaken of the impact of the human side of every story that science creates. And this was my clue. As a matter of fact, I think it's interesting to note that 50% of my doctoral dissertation committee is still active in research here today at the university some 30 years later. My doctoral advisor, Dr. Ted Labuza, Professor Gary Renexius from Food Science, Professor John Evans, who is now at the University of Minnesota Duluth, Professor Douglas Bates, who is at the University of Wisconsin and has served on my committee in my math capacity, and of course, two professors who gave me really early starts. Dr. David Tillman from the Department of Ecology, who answered my call when I knocked on his door and said, as a freshman in 1978, I need to make enough money for my tuition. He said, "Can you wash dishes?" I said, "I'm a scientist." And I also want to thank particularly Dr. Mark Brenner, who was a longtime professor in horticulture. As a matter of fact, two of his graduate students are sitting here right now, Professor Hoover and Professor Luby. There they are over there. They were graduate students at the time, and if those of you who know Professor Hoover, I made the mistake of asking her in one day in the lab while she was working on strawberries, "Why are the seeds on the outside of a strawberry?" And then I got the answer, "They're not seeds." Today, I remember that lesson very clearly. You know, what's very quite interesting is that when I was at Frito-Lay, I was always quite amazed at the fact that what we were trying to accomplish was how do you make a low-fat snack food by taking the technology that allowed you to heat and cook a potato chip with hot air as opposed to oil? And I thought that was a really fun scientific challenge. But that paled by comparison to the challenge that we had to understand what was the role of food in a person's life. How does someone look at their nutrition? How does someone look at snacking behavior? And I realized that science wasn't the only thing that we had to worry about. We had to work on human interaction. And so that's when I began to understand and step back and realize that we're all in our research connected to a system. And it was a systems thinking approach that opened my eyes dramatically. Systems produce a lot of data, and we live now in a data-rich world. All of you as graduates will be able to now use computational power to study and improve it. But it also opens up new opportunities that will touch and be a part of every field here at the University of Minnesota in the coming decade, because data will help us make that connection between the human connection of our world, our environment, and the planet we all share together. Well, you know, I wanted to ask, not myself in terms of what could I offer you as pieces of advice as I leave today, but I wanted to leverage other connections. And so I reached out on social media for help. I crowdsourced some ideas that I want to leave with you today because I was blessed with the opportunity to teach entrepreneurship in now more than 20 universities over the past 18 years. So I reached out to my former student network on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and even did an email survey. Because, you know, thanks to them, you're not just an audience, you're also a data set to me, so I thought I would share some of that with you. I wanted to see if they could recall some of the things we talked about in class in entrepreneurship about what is an opportunity and what they could pass on to you as a group of brand new graduates. So as we sat with our research team, we got over 500 responses, and so we actually data refined them, and here's a quick collage of the top 20. Learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Learn to listen to ideas that you disagree with. Use logic and facts to do the analysis, but use humanity to draw the insights. Not taking a big risk is still a big risk. Life doesn't allow you to completely avoid risk, but you pay attention, it will let you choose those that you take on. Look to solve any problem by looking at nature. Never settle, always innovate, problem solve, improve, provide remedy. To do so, take some chances and dare to be different. Save the pollinators. Without them, food production becomes difficult. That was a big topic and had a lot of frequency in our survey. Focus on the problem you want to solve in the world, not the job you have in a corporation. Facts are important in decision making. Boy, I'm glad they remembered that lesson. Quit thinking out of the box. Simply create a new box. Never underestimate the personal motivation of anyone you do business with. And this one's very important. In the first 5 minutes of any negotiation meeting, if you haven't identified who the sucker is, you're the sucker. Ole knows that lesson all too well. Embrace change. Always listen to the value of lessons and messages of others, even if you don't share the same views. Keep relearning how to be curious. Develop a clear set of guiding values, and remember that those values you pick are a skill that need to be mastered. Global warming is real. Hurry up and fail. And of course, I think because the CFANS, I love this one, had a high frequency response. The best natural resource you have is your own mind. Great seeds of wisdom. In closing, you now have a new audience starting today to share your science with, the world. Dare to be heard. Help redefine the world that helps convert the next generation of ideas you create into opportunities that create value for our world. Congratulations to you, the new wave. The world truly needs you. And it's been an honor for at least this brief moment to be connected on this storyline with you in your lives. Connection means nothing until we make it. But don't forget the most important connection. Connect with your own life. Take the time to look at the opportunity to grow as a person. Life is a wonderful adventure. Share the journey and be open to alternative paths. And we'll see you in another 30 years. I can't wait to see what stories you will create. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. It took all of his energy to stay behind this podium. If you've never seen him speak before when he's turned loose, I'm amazed he pulled it off. I'm also going to bring up a 21st one since he was speaking, and one of those is we talk a lot about servant leadership in CFANS. But about 2 years ago, Jeff and his wife, Kay, who's in the audience, and his son is here too, I see sitting here, is graduating next week, I think, as an undergrad. Good to see you again. About 2 years ago, they came to CFANS, worked with a group of undergraduate students to do an entrepreneurship boot camp. And they spent their Saturdays here in Coffee Hall with a group of undergraduates to help them identify ideas that they could commercialize at some point. And I think strawberries is one of them. The person of the strawberries that won it, who would not mold as quickly with some compound thing they created that I'm sure is perfectly safe to eat. But there was probably about 60 to 70 hours of their time that they gave to our students. And because I'm an economist, every time he said economist, he looked at me, and I'm sure that's a bid to get his money from doing that. But we're expecting nothing in return other than the chance to help these students. And so we really appreciate that, and that's something I think is an important lesson for everyone to think about how they can contribute their talents. So Jeff and Kay, and I can't remember your son's name, but thank you for joining us again today. With that, we now turn to the part of the ceremony that you have all been waiting for, and we'll begin the presentation of the degree candidates. Professor Jim Luby from the Department of Horticultural Science will present the candidates for master's degrees. Jim?
Okay, we will now recognize the candidates for the master's degrees. I request the master's students to come forward. In animal science, Grace Dewey. In animal science, Gabriela Furo. In animal science, Amanda Marie Pawlowski. In applied economics, Reynold Abdi. In applied economics, Jordan Clark. In applied economics, Michael Ritz. In applied plant science, Marie Abbey. In applied plant science, Emmanuel Damilola Adiamao. Congratulations. In applied plant science, Rebecca Jane Carlson. Congratulations. In applied plant science, Jessica E. M. Coburn. In applied plant science, Ryan Gavin. In applied plant science, Cody Allen Herning. In applied plant science, Leanna Leverich. Congratulations. In applied plant science, Nicole Teresa Mihalik. Jared. In applied plant science, Jared Miles Rubenstein. In applied plant science, Sydney Ann Schiffner. In applied plant science, Zenit Tendulkar. In bioproduct, biosystems, science and engineering and management, Tanner Barnhurst. In bioproducts, biosystem science, engineering and management, Natalia Calisto Mancipe. In bioproducts, biosystem science, engineering and management, Karen Kai Cantilina. In bioproduct, biosystem science and engineering and management, Karen Leanne Ortega. In bioproducts, biosystem science, engineering and management, Glenn James Peterson. In bioproducts, biosystem science, engineering and management, Lucas John Stolp. In bioproducts, biosystem science, engineering and management, Richard Frederick Griffith. In bioproducts, biosystems, science, engineering, and management, Yushuan Wang. In entomology, Daniela Tamara Pezzini. In food science, Jaya Jungana Banjadi. In food science, Claire Allison Boyle. In food science, Stephanie Marie Hevemeyer. In food science, Juan Giustra Mogojinta. In food science, Xiaoshuan Yang. My apologies if I didn't say that right. In food science, Yingxin Zhang. In land and atmospheric sciences, Emily Lauren Anderson. In land and atmospheric science, Ana Lucia Pax Krupp. In land and atmospheric science, Natalie Renee Ricks. In land and atmospheric science, Adrian Allen Wackett. In natural resources science and management, Brian David Anderson. In natural resources science and management, Alan Jacob Tuchalowski. In nutrition, Riley Thomas Annan. In nutrition, Patricia Ariano Roldon. In nutrition, Cassandra Grace Hosfield. In nutrition, Lauren K. Millen. In nutrition, Caitlin Jan Shoemaker. In plant pathology, Matthew Martin. In water resources science, Nathaniel Walter Baumler. Dean Burr, this concludes our presentation of candidates for the master's degree.
Let's give all the master's candidates one more round of applause. Congratulations. Now we'll be presenting the doctoral candidates, and Professor Marla Reichs from the Department of Food Science and Nutrition has the pleasure of presenting those students who have earned the Doctor of Philosophy degree, one of the highest degrees granted by the University of Minnesota. Professor Reichs.
So we will now recognize candidates for doctoral degrees. I request the doctoral students to come forward. Advisors, you're welcome to move to the front of the stage to hood your graduating student. For animal science, Michelle Lee DeBoer. In animal science, Amanda Michelle Grev. Thank you. In animal science, Amy Renee Hazel Luschke. Thank you. In animal science, Brittany Nicole Shanka Martin.
Thank you.
In animal science, Yuan Chai. Oh, I'm sorry. Applied economics, Yuan Chai. Sorry about that. In applied economics, Joel Cuffey. In applied economics, Su Yan Han.
Thank you.
In applied economics, Belorma Yame Yansuran.
Thank you.
In applied economics, Napat Jatusi Pitak.
You're cute.
In applied economics, Li Bin Ruan.
Thank you.
In applied economics, Jong Wook Lee.
Thank you.
In applied economics, Brant Richardson. In applied economics, Hoi Tren Soon.
Thank you.
In applied economics, Tomoko Utsumi.
Thank you.
In applied economics, Yang Hao Wang.
Thank you.
In Applied Economics, Fonda Young.
Li Zhao.
In Applied Economics, Shou Li Zhao. In Applied Plant Science, Nicholas Carter Ames. Thank you. In Applied Plant Science, Prabeen Baujagai. In Applied Plant Sciences, Amrit Pal Singh. In Applied Plant Sciences, Soon Lee Tay. In Bioproducts, Biosystem Science, Engineering, and Management, Sahana Ramana. In Bioproducts, Biosystem Sciences, Engineering, and Management, Xin Zhang.
Thank you.
In Conservation Sciences, Catherine Knuth. In Entomology, Anthony Arden Hansen. In Land and Atmospheric Science, Benjamin DeVries. Thank you. In Land and Atmospheric Science, Isam Lakori. You're welcome.
Thank you.
In Natural Resource Sciences and Management, Barry Tyler Wilson. In Nutrition, Julie Hess.
I'm going to come over there by you.
In Nutrition, Francine Mangandeo Overcash.
I'm going to just fill in for Marla since she has the two PhD students here. So Yuang Chong.
In Plant Pathology, Zena Chepkoich Kazge. And in Water Resource Sciences, Youssef Hussein Ali. Dean Boer, this concludes our presentation of candidates for the doctoral degree.
Thank you, Dr. Reichs. And again, let's give our PhD students another round of applause. That was the cue for more cowbell, by the way. Will the graduates please, Regent Johnson, these candidates are presented to you for the degrees named.
Before I have the graduates stand, I want to bring you a greeting from the Board of Regents. The Board of Regents are 12 members citizens elected by the legislature to serve for 6-year terms and are the governing board of the University of Minnesota. On behalf of the Board of Regents, I want to publicly thank the faculty and staff of CFANS and, well, as President Kaler, for your devoted work in your various disciplines. We most certainly appreciate all of your work. With that, I would ask the graduates if you would please stand. And this is the moment you have been waiting for. This makes it official. So listen to these words. Upon the recommendation of the faculty and by the authority of the regents, I now confer upon you the degree for which you have qualified. Congratulations, and let us give them a rousing round of applause.
Again, congratulations to all of our students. Your work is tremendous, and we look forward to you going out into that world and having great impacts on those grand challenges. So thank you all, and congratulations to all of you. Well done. Regent Johnson, I also want to thank you for your recognizing these candidates and granting those degrees. That will conclude our program. Audience, we ask you to please remain seated until the faculty and students have left the auditorium. And I would like to thank our wonderful vocalist, Megan Wagner, for sharing her talents with us today as well. And our quartet of musicians from the School of Music, C.J. Point on cello, Yumhali Garcia and Samuel Wong on violins, and Patrick Gallagher on viola. Please stand. We offer all of you new graduates our very best wishes as you begin your new phases in life. Thank you and good luck. We'll conclude with the singing of the Hail Minnesota, after which I invite students and audience to reception in the Terrace Cafe area located one floor down. Thank you.
Thy shall And then we can be done. So, 1, 2, 3, 4.